The rooftop of our apartment building at midnight was supposed to be my sanctuary. Just me, my rusty Schwinn, and the blessed silence of a city that finally shut its mouth for 5 minutes. But tonight, the universe had other plans. He's such a bore, Vera. I mean, seriously, when's the last time he took you somewhere that didn't have a drive-through window? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Cassie's voice cut through the night air like a rusty blade. I froze, wrench in hand, crouched behind the bike rack like some suburban spy. My wife and her best friend were having their weekly gossip session on the other side of the rooftop garden, and apparently I was tonight's main course. "It's not that bad," Vera said, but her voice lacked conviction. The same voice that used to whisper sweet things in my ear now sounded tired, defeated. Trent's just practical. Practical. There's a word that'll make a man's ego shrivel faster than a slug in salt. Practical? Cassie laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Honey, real men don't split dinner bills. Real men don't wear the same shirt to 3 different work events. And real men certainly don't fix bicycles on rooftops at midnight instead of taking their wives to bed. I should have walked away. Should have made noise, coughed, announced my presence like a decent human being. Instead, I stayed crouched there like a gargoyle, listening to my marriage get dissected by a woman who'd been divorced twice before 35. Nathan's different, Vera said quietly. Nathan. The name hit me like a punch to the solar plexus. Nathan Briggs, the golden boy who'd swooped into Vera's tech company 6 months ago with his MBA and his Porsche and his perfectly styled hair that probably cost more to maintain than my monthly grocery budget. Different how? Cassie's voice carried a knowing smirk. He sees me. Really sees me. When we're together, I feel like I'm worth something again. Worth something again. As if 15 years of marriage, of building a life together, of me working double shifts to put her through business school, had been some kind of elaborate charity case. And the sex? Cassie asked. I gripped the wrench so hard my knuckles went white. God, Cassie, it's like being alive again. Nathan knows how to make a woman feel desired. When's the last time Trent even looked at me? Really looked at me? Last Tuesday, I wanted to shout. When you were getting dressed for work and the morning light was hitting your hair just right, and I told you that you looked beautiful and you barely grunted in response because you were too busy checking your phone. You deserve better, honey. You've got the promotion, the corner office, the respect. Why are you still slumming it with a guy who peaked in community college? That stung. Sure, I'd never finished my 4-year degree. Sure, I worked in IT support instead of running boardroom meetings. But I'd built something. Our life, our home, our daughter's college fund. Apparently none of that mattered when weighed against Nathan's luxury car and his expense account dinners. I know, Vera said. I know you're right. It's just complicated. Complicated how? You're not happy. He doesn't appreciate you. And Nathan's crazy about you. What's complicated about that? I heard the scrape of chairs, the rustle of purses being gathered. They were leaving. I stayed frozen behind the bike rack until their footsteps faded and the rooftop door slammed shut. The city spread out below me, a million lights twinkling like false promises. Somewhere down there, Nathan Briggs was probably sleeping peacefully in his king-size bed, dreaming about my wife. And my wife was probably lying next to me in our queen-size bed, dreaming about him. I finished adjusting the bike's derailleur with shaking hands. The mechanical precision of it was soothing. Unlike marriages, bicycles made sense. When something was broken, you could see it, fix it, make it work again. When something was worn out, you replaced it. But what do you do when you're the thing that's worn out? The next morning, Vera was already gone when I woke up. Her coffee cup sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim like a red flag. A note on the counter. Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight. V. Don't wait up. When had we become the kind of couple who left notes instead of kisses? I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years, but my supervisor didn't question it. Probably figured I'd finally caught whatever bug had been going around the office. If only he knew the real sickness was eating me alive from the inside. Vera's laptop sat on the kitchen counter, forgotten in her rush to leave. She'd changed her password months ago, claiming it was for work security, but I knew her better than she thought. Her mother's maiden name plus our anniversary year. Some habits die hard. The laptop opened like a digital Pandora's box. Her email was a treasure trove of deception, dinner reservations at restaurants I couldn't afford, hotel confirmations for business trips I'd never heard about, and the texts. Sweet Jesus, the texts. Nathan, Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Vera, I know. I feel terrible, but I can't help myself. Nathan, don't feel terrible. Feel alive. You deserve to be worshipped. Vera, Trent would die if he knew. Nathan, then maybe it's time to put him out of his misery. I screenshot everything. Every message, every receipt, every hotel confirmation. My hands moved on autopilot while my brain tried to process the magnitude of the betrayal. 15 years? 15 years of marriage reduced to putting me out of my misery. The worst part wasn't the affair. It was the contempt, the casual way they discussed me, like I was some inconvenient obstacle to be removed rather than a human being with feelings, like I was already dead and just too stupid to lie down. My phone buzzed. A text from Doug, my best friend since high school and the only person in this city who still talked to me like I mattered. Beer tonight? You looked like hell at poker last week. I typed back, rain check, family stuff. Family stuff. What a joke. We weren't a family anymore. We were just 3 people sharing an address and pretending everything was fine. I spent the afternoon digging deeper. Nathan's social media was public, the kind of guy who posted gym selfies and motivational quotes about winning and crushing it. His LinkedIn showed he'd been married once before, divorced after 2 years, no kids, no responsibilities, just a 32-year-old man-child with a trust fund and a talent for stealing other people's wives. The deeper I dug, the angrier I got. Not just at Vera and Nathan, but at myself. How had I missed the signs? The new clothes, the gym membership, the sudden interest in networking events that ran late into the night. I'd been so busy trying to be the perfect husband, the reliable provider, the stable foundation, that I'd never noticed my wife was building a new life on top of my grave. By 5 o'clock, I had enough evidence to end my marriage 10 times over. Photos, texts, credit card statements showing charges at lingerie stores and expensive restaurants. A paper trail of lies that stretched back 6 months. But evidence was just evidence. What I needed was a plan. Vera came home at 8, claiming she'd been at a client dinner. She was glowing, practically floating on air, and I knew she'd been with him. The knowledge sat in my stomach like a stone. How was work? She asked, not really listening for an answer as she scrolled through her phone. Enlightening, I said. She looked up, maybe catching something in my tone. Everything okay? I could have confronted her then, could have laid out the evidence like a prosecutor and demanded an explanation, but that would have been the old Trent, the practical one, the one who believed in fairness and communication and working things out. The new Trent, the one born on that rooftop last night, had different ideas. Everything's perfect, I said, and smiled. She smiled back, relieved, and went back to her phone. Probably texting Nathan about how clueless her husband was, how easy it was to fool me. She had no idea that the fool was about to become the monster. Vera's company Christmas party was always a big deal, the kind of event where appearances mattered and everyone spent more on their outfits than most people made in a week. This year, it was being held at Meridian, the fanciest restaurant in the city, the kind of place where the waiters wore tuxedos and the wine list read like a mortgage payment. You're wearing that? Vera asked when I came downstairs in my best suit. It was 3 years old and off the rack, but it was clean and pressed and it fit me well enough. What's wrong with it? She sighed, the kind of sigh that said everything and nothing. Never mind, we're already late. The party was in full swing when we arrived. Vera's colleagues and their spouses clustered around high-top tables, drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than I made in a day. I recognized most of them from previous years, back when they still acknowledged my existence with polite smiles and small talk about the weather. Now they looked through me like I was furniture. Vera! Cassie materialized out of the crowd like a perfectly dressed vulture, air-kissing my wife's cheeks while completely ignoring me. You look absolutely stunning. That dress is divine. Thank you, Vera beamed. Nathan helped me pick it out. The words hit me like a slap. Nathan had been shopping with my wife. Nathan had opinions about what my wife wore. Nathan was standing across the room right now, looking at my wife and the dress he'd chosen, probably imagining taking it off her later. Trent! Cassie finally acknowledged me with the enthusiasm of someone greeting a parking meter. How nice to see you. Always a pleasure, Cassie, I replied. Love what you've done with your hair. Very ambitious. Her smile faltered slightly. Cassie's hair was her pride and joy, and she'd clearly spent a fortune on whatever new color and cut she was sporting. Calling it ambitious was a polite way of saying it looked like she'd stuck her finger in an electrical socket. I need to powder my nose, Vera announced, already moving away from me toward her gaggle of work friends. Within seconds, I was standing alone, holding a glass of champagne that tasted like expensive regret. Trent Morrison, right? I turned to find Nathan Briggs extending his hand, all white teeth and practiced charm. He was younger than me, taller than me, and wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. Everything about him screamed success, from his perfectly styled hair to his Swiss watch to his confident smile. "Nathan," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, the kind of handshake they teach you in business school. "Vera's told me so much about you." "All good things, I hope," he laughed. "She's an incredible woman. You're a lucky man." The audacity of it took my breath away. Here he was, the man who was sleeping with my wife, telling me how lucky I was to have her. It was like being stabbed and having the killer compliment your shirt. "I certainly am," I agreed. "In fact, I was thinking of treating her to something special tonight. Maybe dinner at that new place downtown, the one with the tasting menu?" Nathan's smile didn't waver, but something flickered behind his eyes. "That sounds wonderful. Vera deserves the best." "She does," I said. "The absolute best. No expense spared." We stood there for a moment, two men having a perfectly civilized conversation about my wife, while one of us plotted to destroy the other's life. The civilized veneer of it all made me want to laugh or scream or both. "Well," Nathan said finally, "I should go mingle. Enjoy your evening, Trent." "Oh, I intend to." He walked away, and I watched him navigate the crowd like a shark through a school of fish. Confident, predatory, completely at ease in this world of expensive suits and calculated conversations. Everything I wasn't. But I had something Nathan didn't. Nothing left to lose. The evening wore on, and I played my part perfectly. The dutiful husband, the supportive spouse, the man who knew his place in the hierarchy. I made small talk with people who barely tolerated me, complimented dresses I couldn't afford, and smiled until my face hurt. And all the while, I planned. When Vera announced she was ready to leave, I suggested we cap off the evening with a late dinner. "Just the two of us," I said, "like old times." She hesitated, probably thinking about Nathan, about whatever plans they'd made for later. But we were in public, surrounded by her colleagues, and refusing would have looked strange. "That sounds lovely," she said, though her smile was strained. I chose Chez Laurent, the most expensive restaurant in the city, the kind of place where dinner for two could easily run $2,000 if you ordered the right wine, the kind of place Nathan probably took her all the time. We were seated at a corner table, candlelit and intimate, like a scene from a romantic movie. Vera looked beautiful in the flickering light, and for a moment I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her all those years ago. Before the ambition consumed her, before Nathan, before everything went wrong. "This is nice," she said, though she kept checking her phone. "Isn't it?" I agreed, studying the menu. "I think we should go all out tonight. The lobster looks good. And that wine, the 1998 Bordeaux. When's the next time we'll have an excuse to celebrate?" Vera looked uncomfortable. "Trent, maybe we should live a little," I finished. "You're absolutely right. We work hard. We deserve this." I ordered everything. Appetizers, entrees, sides, dessert, and that bottle of wine that cost more than most people's rent. Vera picked at her food, distracted and anxious, while I ate with genuine appetite for the first time in weeks. When the check came, I made a show of reaching for my wallet, pulled out my credit card with a flourish, and handed it to the waiter. 5 minutes later, he returned, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, sir, but your card has been declined." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Vera's face went white, then red, then white again. Around us, other diners began to notice the commotion. "That's impossible," I said loudly. "Try it again." The waiter tried again. Same result. "Let me try another card," I said, pulling out my backup. Also declined. By now, half the restaurant was watching our little drama unfold. Vera looked like she wanted to crawl under the table and die. "I'm so sorry," I announced to the room at large. "Looks like we'll have to split this one, honey. You know how it is these days, credit card companies and their security measures." Vera's hand shook as she reached for her purse. Her company credit card went through without a problem, because of course it did. Because Nathan had probably helped her build her credit, just like he'd helped her pick out her dress. We left the restaurant in silence, Vera's humiliation radiating off her like heat. In the parking lot, she finally exploded. "What the hell was that, Trent? How could you embarrass me like that?" "Embarrass you?" I laughed. "Honey, I didn't embarrass you. Your standards embarrassed you. Your need to keep up appearances embarrassed you. I just bought you dinner." "A $2,000 dinner we couldn't afford." "We?" I raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were the successful one now. The one with the corner office and the big promotion. Surely a woman of your stature can handle one little dinner bill. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. You planned this, she said quietly. I planned to take my wife out for a nice dinner, I replied. If that turned into a learning experience about fiscal responsibility, well, that's just a bonus. She got in the car without another word, and we drove home in silence. But I could feel something shifting between us, some fundamental change in the balance of power. For the first time in months, Vera looked at me with something other than contempt. She looked at me with fear, and that, I realized, was a start. The dinner incident was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I began to systematically dismantle the comfortable lie that had become our marriage. Small things at first. Casual comments about Nathan at social gatherings, questions about Vera's late nights and weekend work emergencies. Nothing accusatory, nothing that could be called confrontational, just a husband showing interest in his wife's professional life. But Vera wasn't stupid. She could feel the shift, sense the trap closing around her even if she couldn't see all the pieces yet. She became jumpy, paranoid, checking her phone constantly and having hushed conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon in February. Vera had claimed she was going to a team-building retreat for the weekend, but I knew better. I'd seen the hotel confirmation in her email, the same luxury resort where she and Nathan had spent 3 previous weekends, charged to her company credit card as business expenses. What Vera didn't know was that I'd made some business expenses of my own. I'd hired Marcus Webb, a private investigator Doug had recommended. Marcus was a former cop with a talent for surveillance and a complete lack of moral squeamishness. For $500, he'd spent the weekend documenting every moment of Vera and Nathan's romantic getaway. The photos were everything I'd hoped for, and worse than I'd imagined. Vera and Nathan holding hands by the pool, kissing in the hotel restaurant, entering their room together with the kind of urgency that left no doubt about their intentions. Marcus had even managed to capture them through the window, and those photos would end careers and destroy reputations. But I wasn't ready to play that card yet. Instead, I decided to have a little fun. Vera returned from her retreat on Sunday evening, glowing with the kind of satisfaction that comes from a weekend of guilt-free adultery. She was humming as she unpacked her suitcase, practically floating on air. "How was the team building?" I asked from the doorway. "Oh, she said without looking at me. "Trust exercises, leadership workshops, the usual corporate nonsense." "Sounds exhausting. You look tired." She glanced at me in the mirror, and for a split second I saw panic flicker across her face. But she recovered quickly. "It was a long weekend. I think I'll take a bath and turn in early." "Good idea," I agreed. "You should rest up. Big week ahead." She nodded and headed for the bathroom, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she moved just a little too quickly. She knew something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what. While she was in the bath, I made my move. I took her phone from her purse and scrolled through her messages with Nathan. They were planning another rendezvous for the following weekend, this time at his apartment. She was going to tell me she had a client dinner that would run late. I screenshot the conversation and sent it to myself, then deleted the evidence from her phone. By the time she emerged from the bathroom, I was sitting in bed reading a book like nothing had happened. "Trent," she said, settling into bed beside me, "we need to talk." My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice casual. "About what?" "About us. About where we're going." I closed the book and looked at her. She was beautiful in the lamplight, her hair still damp from the bath, wearing the silk nightgown I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. The nightgown she probably wore for Nathan now. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "I think we both know things haven't been good between us for a while. We're like strangers living in the same house. Maybe it's time we admitted that and figured out what to do about it." "Are you asking for a divorce, Vera?" The word hung between us like a loaded gun. She flinched slightly but didn't back down. "I'm asking if you think we can fix this. If you even want to fix this." It was a fair question, and 6 months ago I would have said yes without hesitation. I would have begged her to go to counseling, to give us another chance, to remember what we used to mean to each other. But that was before I knew about Nathan, before I understood that she wasn't trying to fix our marriage. She was trying to end it with her conscience intact. "I think," I said carefully, "that marriage is about commitment, about working through the hard times instead of running away when things get difficult." "And if one person has already given up?" "Has one person given up, Vera?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "I don't know. Maybe." "Well," I said, turning back to my book, "I appreciate your honesty." She stared at me for a long moment, probably expecting me to fight for her, to make some grand gesture or passionate plea. When I didn't, she turned off her lamp and rolled over to face the wall. "Good night, Trent." "Good night, Vera. Sweet dreams." But I knew she wouldn't sleep well. I knew she'd lie there wondering what I was thinking, what I knew, what I was planning. The uncertainty would eat at her, just like her betrayal had been eating at me. The difference was, I had a plan, and she had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I made my first real move. While Vera was at work, I went to the bank and moved half our savings into a separate account. Legally, it was my right as a joint account holder. Practically, it meant Vera's safety net had just been cut in half. Then I called her boss. "Mr. Richardson, this is Trent Morrison, Vera's husband. I hope you don't mind me calling, but I wanted to thank you for being so understanding about her travel schedule lately. All these weekend retreats and client dinners, I know it's a lot to ask of an employee, even one as dedicated as Vera." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison, but I'm not sure what you're referring to. Vera hasn't had any company travel in the past month, and we don't typically schedule client dinners on weekends." "Oh," I said, injecting just the right amount of confusion into my voice. She must have been talking about personal development seminars then. You know how ambitious she is, always looking for ways to improve herself professionally. "Of course," Richardson said, but I could hear the wheels turning in his head. "Well, thank you for calling." I hung up, knowing that Richardson would be having a very interesting conversation with Vera before the day was out. Company credit cards leave paper trails, and expense reports require documentation. If Vera had been charging personal expenses to the company, it was fraud, and fraud was grounds for immediate termination. But I wasn't done yet. My next call was to Nathan's business partner, a man named James Chen, who owned 50% of their luxury car dealership. I'd done my research on Chen, and what I'd found was interesting. He was a family man, deeply religious, with strong opinions about moral character and business ethics. "Mr. Chen, this is Trent Morrison. I believe you know my wife, Vera. She works with your partner, Nathan Briggs." "Yes, of course. Vera's a lovely woman. How can I help you?" "Well, I was hoping you could help me plan a surprise for her. She's been working so closely with Nathan lately, all these weekend conferences and business trips, and I wanted to do something special to show my appreciation for her dedication." Another pause, another moment of confusion as the pieces didn't quite fit together. "I'm not sure I understand, Mr. Morrison. Nathan handles the sales side of our business, but we don't typically work with outside tech consultants on weekends." "Oh, I must have misunderstood," I said. "Vera mentioned something about consulting on your customer management systems, but maybe I got the details wrong. You know how it is when your wife starts talking about work." I laughed, the sound of a man who trusted his wife completely. "Of course," Chen said slowly. "Well, if there's anything specific I can help you with..." "Actually, there is one thing. Nathan seems like such a professional young man. I was thinking of recommending him to some friends who might need a good car salesman. He's single, right? Available to work evenings and weekends?" "Actually, Nathan is... Well, his personal life is his own business, but he's been quite busy lately with extracurricular activities." "I'm sure he has," I said. "A successful young man like that must have all sorts of opportunities." "Well, I won't keep you. Thanks for your time, Mr. Chen." I hung up and sat back in my chair, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Satisfaction. The seeds were planted. Richardson would start asking questions about Vera's expense reports. Chen would start wondering about Nathan's weekend activities. And sooner or later, the truth would come out. But I wasn't going to wait for sooner or later. I was going to accelerate the timeline. That evening, Vera came home looking shaken. Her conversation with Richardson hadn't gone well, I could tell. She was pale and distracted, barely touching her dinner. "Everything okay at work?" I asked innocently. "Fine," she said quickly. "Just some confusion about travel expenses. Nothing serious." "That's good. I'd hate for there to be any problems with your job, especially now when things are so uncertain." She looked at me sharply. "What do you mean, uncertain?" I shrugged. "Just the economy, you know. Companies are cutting back everywhere. Even successful executives aren't safe anymore." The color drained from her face. She knew I was right. Her job, her independence, her ability to support herself if our marriage ended, it all depended on staying in her boss's good graces. And I'd just made that a lot more complicated. "I think I'll go to bed early," she said, standing abruptly. "I have a big day tomorrow." "Sweet dreams," I called after her. But I knew she wouldn't be dreaming sweetly. She'd be lying awake, wondering how much I knew and what I was planning to do about it. The beautiful thing about revenge, I was learning, wasn't the big dramatic moments. It was the slow, creeping dread, the gradual realization that the life you'd built on lies was starting to crumble, and I was just getting started. 3 weeks later, everything came to a head at Vera's company's annual awards banquet. It was the kind of event where the city's business elite gathered to pat themselves on the back and network over overpriced champagne. Vera had won the Rising Star Award for her performance this year, and she was scheduled to give a speech. She had no idea I'd bought a table. I arrived early and positioned myself strategically, close enough to see her face when the moment came, but far enough away to avoid immediate detection. Doug was with me, along with my sister Janine and her husband Mike. I'd told them we were there to support Vera, which wasn't entirely a lie. "You sure about this?" Doug asked as we watched the crowd filter in. "Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." "There's already no going back," I replied. "She made that choice 6 months ago." Vera looked stunning as she worked the room, networking and schmoozing with the best of them. She was wearing a new dress, something expensive and elegant that I'd never seen before. Nathan's taste, no doubt. He was there too, hovering at the edges of her orbit like a satellite, close enough to admire, but far enough away to maintain plausible deniability. The awards ceremony began at 8. Vera was the third recipient, and she practically glowed as she walked to the podium to accept her trophy. Her speech was polished and professional, full of gratitude for her team and her company and her bright future in the industry. She never mentioned me. When she finished and returned to her table, I made my move. I stood up, raised my champagne glass, and spoke loud enough for half the room to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment." The room quieted, confused murmurs rippling through the crowd. Vera's face went white as she spotted me for the first time. "I'm Trent Morrison, and I'd like to propose a toast to my wife, Vera Morrison, your Rising Star Award winner." Polite applause, uncertain smiles. People weren't sure what was happening, but they sensed it wasn't entirely normal. "Vera has worked incredibly hard this year," I continued, my voice carrying clearly in the suddenly quiet room. "She's put in long hours, sacrificed weekends, and shown tremendous dedication to her professional development. She's attended seminars and conferences, built relationships with key partners, and really gone above and beyond the call of duty." Nathan was shifting uncomfortably at his table, probably wondering where this was going. Vera looked frozen, like a deer in headlights. In fact, just this past weekend, she attended another one of those professional development retreats, the kind where you really get to know your colleagues on a personal level. Team-building exercises, trust falls, intimate workshops on communication and collaboration. The room was dead silent now. Everyone could sense the subtext, even if they couldn't quite identify it yet. "So here's to Vera," I said, raising my glass higher. "A woman who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to go after it. A woman who understands that success sometimes requires getting close to the right people, very close." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. In fact, I'm so proud of Vera's networking skills that I thought everyone should see just how effective she's been at building professional relationships. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first photograph. Marcus had done excellent work. The image was crystal clear, showing Vera and Nathan in an intimate embrace by the hotel pool, his hand on her ass, her tongue in his mouth. "This is from last weekend's retreat," I announced, holding the photo high enough for the nearby tables to see. "As you can see, Vera has really mastered the art of collaborative teamwork." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's champagne glass hit the floor and shattered. Vera made a sound like a wounded animal. "Trent, stop," she whispered, but her voice was lost in the chaos. I pulled out the second photo. This one showed them entering their hotel room together, Nathan's hand on the small of Vera's back, both of them laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. And here we see the importance of one-on-one mentoring sessions, really getting to know your business partners on an intimate level. "Security!" someone shouted, but I wasn't done yet. The third photo was the money shot. Taken through the hotel room window with a telephoto lens, it showed Vera and Nathan in bed together, her head thrown back in ecstasy, his face buried in her neck. It was pornographic in its clarity, devastating in its implications. "And this," I said, my voice carrying over the growing commotion, "is what true professional dedication looks like. Going the extra mile, putting in the overtime, really committing to the relationship." Security guards were pushing through the crowd toward me now, but I had one more card to play. I pulled out a stack of papers and scattered them into the air like confetti. "Hotel receipts," I announced, "all charged to Morrison Tech Solutions' corporate account. 6 months of weekend getaways and romantic dinners, all funded by company money. I'm sure the IRS will find them fascinating reading." That's when Vera finally found her voice. "You bastard!" she screamed, lunging toward me across the crowded room. "You sick, twisted bastard!" But Nathan caught her arm, holding her back, and that small gesture told the room everything they needed to know. The affair was real. The photos were real. The betrayal was complete and undeniable. Security reached me just as I finished my performance. They grabbed my arms and started escorting me toward the exit, but I wasn't resisting. I'd accomplished everything I'd come here to do. "Ladies and gentlemen," I called out as they dragged me away, "let's hear it for this year's rising star, a woman who's really learned how to climb the corporate ladder." The last thing I saw before they pushed me through the exit was Vera's face, streaked with tears and twisted with rage and humiliation. Nathan was trying to comfort her, but she shoved him away. Around them, the cream of the city's business community sat in stunned silence, processing what they'd just witnessed. By tomorrow morning, the story would be all over social media. By next week, it would be legend. Vera Morrison, the rising star who fell to earth in the most spectacular way possible. Outside in the parking lot, the security guards released me with a warning not to return. I straightened my tie, brushed off my jacket, and walked calmly to my car. My phone was already buzzing with text messages. Doug, holy shit, man, that was brutal. Janine, are you okay? That was intense. Even some numbers I didn't recognize, probably people who'd gotten my contact info and wanted to congratulate me or condemn me. But there was only one message I cared about, and it came through 20 minutes later as I sat in my apartment, pouring myself a scotch. It was from Vera. "We need to talk." I typed back, "No, we really don't." Then I turned off my phone, put my feet up, and enjoyed the silence. For the first time in 6 months, I felt completely at peace. The war was over. I'd won. But more importantly, I'd reminded Vera Morrison what it felt like to be humiliated in public, to have your dignity stripped away by someone you'd underestimated, to realize that actions have consequences and betrayal comes with a price. She'd wanted a new life, a fresh start, a chance to trade up from her boring husband to her exciting lover. Well, now she had it. She was free to be with Nathan, assuming he still wanted her after tonight's public disaster. Free to find a new job, assuming anyone would hire her after the scandal. Free to start over, assuming she could rebuild her reputation from the ashes of her old one. I raised my glass in a private toast to the woman who'd been my wife for 15 years and my enemy for the last 6 months. "Here's to you, Vera," I said to the empty room. "May you get exactly what you deserve." And somewhere across town, I knew she was finally understanding what that meant.